What's up, everyone? So, for one of my classes at UCSD, throughout the quarter, we've had to write a personal statement and then do like a speech of stuff of experiences, personal statements. What, like for me, it was why do you want to go to medical school? And my speech was about my accident. It was a 5 minute speech, so it wasn't fully in detail. And for our final project, we have to like expand on something in the quarter that we went through or some type of media project. So for this, I want to expand on why I want to go to medical school, and I'll also go into a little detail, more detail of my accident. If you followed me or seen my YouTubes or my Instagram, you know that I broke my neck, I broke my back, and I was paralyzed from the waist down, but you do not know exactly how it happened. Um, yeah, so I'm going to go into detail with that. My experiences in the military with being in other countries and doing some community service here and there in other countries and seeing how people in other countries didn't have the healthcare knowledge that we did kind of like sparked my interest in medical school or some type of medicine or like public health. And then I went to rescue swimmer school where I learned like trauma first aid, and that even sparked my interest even more. Um, so then I got out of the military, I got discharged honorably, and I went to Grossmont Community College here in San Diego, and I started taking like biology classes. And then I jumped into my anatomy class, and I just fell in love with the class. I love how the body functions. I love how our muscles are attached to our bones, and you do a movement, and they do a flexion or a extension. I love that. I started learning about like the kidneys and how they filter out um, all the waste as urea, and then we excrete it as pee. And I just fell in love with how the body just is so powerful and how it helps us function with everything in our lives. And I just said, hey, like I want to go into medicine. I want to specifically like some type of sports medicine where I can help athletes like prolong their careers, or orthopedics, something done with bones and muscles. And I just fell in love with it. Took a human cadaver class where I dissected I don't know if I'm really supposed to talk about it, but an 80-year-old lady who passed away. Took out her respiratory system, her cardiovascular system, while also we took out the brain with a whole spinal cord attached. It was amazing. I didn't know how I was going to react the first time I went into the class, like cutting into a human or a deceased human, but it was it was amazing. I fell in love with it. Like I said, I loved seeing me pulling away all the fat from her body and then exposing all the muscles. It was beautiful. It was amazing to me. I love it. You know, so I decided like I want to go to medical school. And basically like the second semester I started at community college. So busted my butt. Got good grades. Tried to transfer to UCSD, which I'm at right now. I have a couple months left. Hopefully, I'll be graduating in around June. Um, and I thought all the classes have taken all the biology classes, everything else, like solidified my idea to go into medical school. And I was like, yeah, I want to go to medical school. I want to go to medical school. And about 2 years ago, I got into mountain biking. Love the sport. I've always I've in my speech I said this before too, for my class. Like I've always been an adrenaline junkie, snowboarding, cliff jumping, rock climbing, whatever it is. I just anything that makes my heart skip a beat. I love. And so my buddy got me into mountain biking, and when I got into UCSD, I treated myself and bought myself a mountain bike. And I've been on multiple trips. I rode 2 3 times a week the same location. I started to get more comfortable, started to push the limits, hitting the jumps, hitting the features, and I just loved it. It was never a chore for me to ride a bike. I like to say, it wasn't like, oh, I gotta go ride my bike. It was like, yes, I'm gonna go ride my bike. I may have to drive 20 minutes to get there, but I'm gonna ride my bike and I'm gonna love it. Um, so March of this year, same place I always ride with my buddies. Um, the only feature at this location that I haven't hit is this drop, a part of a trail called Insanity Graveyard 5150. They all connect. I don't know which order the trail's called, but there's this drop that I've never hit. And leading up to it, there's like it's like a rock garden, and that just means that there's a bunch of like boulders and rocks that you have to ride over. And I walked past it all the time. I've seen a bunch of friends and other people would ride it and hit it. So I felt, like it's time for me to hit it. I've hit every other feature there, so I might as well hit it. So I'm riding with some buddies, two friends that are just awesome rippers. And we meet at the location we're about to ride. And another guy that I know, who we didn't invite because he was hurt. I thought he was hurt. He hurt his shoulder recently. he's there at the parking lot. He's like, hey, like can I ride with you guys? So we're like, yeah, you know. So we get to the top and we're like, let's do this trail. And I'm like, okay, let's go for it. And then Ty, who wasn't like planning to be there but was there, was like, okay, I'm a little hurt, so I'll just ride behind you guys, because I'm just gonna take it easy. So getting a little emotional. So we're riding, and the two guys in front of me are faster than me, so I'm trying to keep up with them. And when we get to the rock garden portion before the drop, I cleared that portion, but I didn't have the speed that I thought I did, and I went for the drop. And I just committed to it, and I thought I could push my bike out and clear it, and I didn't. So I went nose heavy, and I flipped over, landed on my neck. Sorry, there's a truck passing by. Landed on my neck, landed on my head, sorry, directly on top of my head, and flipped over. And I remember having my eyes closed and asking myself, why haven't I hit the ground yet? And I open my eyes, and I'm laying on my back, and I see nothing but blue skies. And I try to move, and I couldn't move anything from below my waist. So I started to kind of freak out a little bit, and I yelled for help, and nothing came out. I must obviously got the wind knocked out of me also, and I try again, didn't come out, and then I yell again, and it kind of comes out, and Ty is behind me. Luckily, he's behind me. Like I said, he wasn't planning to be there, and we weren't planning for him to be there either. Luckily, he was behind me, because the two guys in front of me were going so fast that when I crashed, they didn't hear it. So I yell for help, and all of a sudden he comes up on me, and he's just like, hold on, dude. And I know you're not supposed to try to move if you can't move any other portion of your body. Obviously there's some type of injury to your spine or your spinal cord, and if you move some more, you can make it worse. But I wanted to try to get up and just see if maybe if I moved, maybe it was like a dream or real, or it wasn't real, and I would move. So he's like, I asked him to help me just prop myself up, and he said no, and I was like, just help me do it. I just in case. So he helps me prop myself up, and the way I like to explain it is like if you have an action figure and the legs are on a swivel and they can just dangle. That's how I felt when he helped me set myself up. Nothing. It just felt like there was nothing there. It just felt like my body was my lower body was just like on a swivel, on a pivot, and it just moved. So I I was like, just lay me back down. He lays me back down, and then he calls the two guys that were in front of us, and then he calls 911. And at this time, my hands are starting to lose functionality. I didn't lose movement in my arms or anything, but the fine movement in my fingers really stopped. And so I have him pull out my phone out of my pocket, and I call my wife, and I'm like dialing, and mountain biking, you're gonna crash sometimes. Like I've had stitches, I've had like gashes on my arms and stuff. So I call her, and I'm like, hey, I crashed, and she's like, and like, mind you, she knows I ride multiple times a week. She knows that on Sundays, like, I'm gonna go ride with my friends, my buddies, and she just knows that it's gonna happen. So I call her like it's a normal day, and I'm just calm, and I'm just like, hey, I crashed, and she's like, and I'm like, and I can't move my legs, and she just freaks out. I'm like, honestly, just stay calm, get here as fast as you can, but be safe. So then we hang up. My hands are starting to hurt, like needles are just being jammed into my hands, just a bunch of nerve pain, and my fingers wouldn't open. And so as my buddy's calling the 911, my other buddy hikes up, like moves my bike out of the way, like helps guide, and then the other buddy's down there waiting to guide like the fire department. So after waiting a little bit, laying on my back, I see this chopper hover above me, to helivac me out, and one of the rescuers gets rappelled down, comes up to me, and assesses me, talks to me. I tell him everything that would happen, and I was conscious and I remember everything. So then he starts to put me in a stretcher, and then all of a sudden I see all like the people who arrived in the fire trucks and the ambulance hiking up, which is a pretty far hike. So they get to me, they help me, strap me in, and they get ready to hoist me up. So they put me in like this stretcher and like this bag, and so it's like, so it can hoist me up. And I just remember, like, in my mind, like going in a helicopter and being hoisted up is amazing to me. Like, that's cool. So I tell like the rescue guy, I was like, hey, can you like clear my face out? you know. So like in my mind, I'm like, I might be able to see, but you know, I didn't realize like my head was strapped into the board and everything was strapped to the board so they could neutralize my spine. So he's like, yeah, but I can't promise you you're gonna see anything because you're gonna, you know, you're strapped in. And I'm like, oh yeah. So like starts to hoist me up, and I start to spin, and I'm starting to get dizzy. And there's pictures, and yeah, this is, you can look at my Instagram. I have like images on my Instagram of like me being hoisted up on like certain stories and stuff. And you know, it was the first time I was gonna get in a helicopter. I get pulled in, and then I'm just laying there flat on my back, and all I got to see was the top of the roof of the helicopter. So while I'm arriving, or while I'm getting hoisted up, my wife gets to the bottom of the trailhead, and you know, she's like freaking out. And then like the fire chief was there, and she's like, that's my husband, like blah blah blah. And so they're like, this is the hospital they're going to, like, get there as fast as you can, drive safe, blah blah blah. So as I'm flying in the helicopter all the way to the hospital, and we land, she was pulling up to the hospital and parking as the helicopter was landing, which is kind of crazy because the helicopter is supposed to allow you to get there faster, but it was like 20 minutes away. So she obviously was speeding pretty fast. So I remember getting there and getting pulled out of the helicopter, seeing the sky, and then seeing the ceiling of the hospital, and that's like the view I had for a long time, for like the whole time I was in the hospital until I was able to stand up on for a little bit. But I get into the trauma center, and like the team's like assessing me. They had to cut up my favorite riding jersey. I was so upset. One of my favorite riding jerseys. They cut it open, like had to assess me. Took off everything, put me in a gown, and they asked me to like move my body, my lower body, like try to push on it, like gas pedal. Didn't happen. And the trauma doctor, Dr. Campbell, was like talking to me, and I just remember saying, yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir. And he's like, were you in the military? And I was like, yes sir. And he's like, so was I was a 20-year Navy doc, blah blah blah. You know, so that was pretty awesome. You know, that kind of started our connection. And then I remember getting strapped on and stuck to this hard board, you know, because they don't want me to move, and I'm in a C-collar, and they pull me out, and my wife is with like one of the staff members, and they're like, yeah, they'll be happy to see you. She's like, he'll be so happy to see me, blah blah blah. And I just remember like being pulled out, and and seeing her. Sorry. And seeing her, and she's like, yeah, he'll be happy to see me, like I'm his wife, like blah blah blah. And I look at her, and I just look away. Didn't say one word to her, because I was blaming myself, you know, like I've been working so hard. Sorry. I've been working hard, you know, like to get to a point where we as a couple can take care of each other in a relationship. You know, I felt like if I was going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life, that I kind of like shortchanged her, you know. So I don't say anything to her because I think of that, and I know if I look at her like for any longer, I was gonna cry, as I am right now. Sorry. So that happens, and they pull me back into, I don't remember where it was, part of the hospital. I'm just waiting for a neurosurgeon to come see me, and he comes up. After he comes, well, my buddy also shows up too, because he was riding. We were supposed to meet up with him, and he was riding. And what's funny about that, I should have said this earlier, but we were gonna meet up and ride with him after we hit that trail, and he's there, and he texts me when I'm about to get hoisted up, before I'm like fully strapped in and I can still see my text messages. He's like, dude, can you see this? Someone's getting helevaced. And I didn't have the guts to text him saying it was me, you know. So whatever, and we get to the hospital. Like I said, I'm waiting for the neurosurgeon, and my wife's there. And then all of a sudden, I see my buddy Chris, and I remember saying, "They're like, yeah, do you mind if he comes?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is a really good friend of mine." He's like, "Really? We're family, man." Like, just getting emotional. Sorry. You know, he's doing a lot for me and my family in this last year. So yeah, he's just part of my family. And I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I'm not paralyzed anymore. But the neurosurgeon comes in and he uh, he talks to me and he's like, you know, we're gonna do imaging. We're gonna make sure you need to be in the C collar. You know, your surgery is gonna be at like 11 o'clock at night tonight. And mind you, it was 11 a.m. in the morning. So I had to stay in the C collar on a firm stretcher until 11 p.m. at night. But he comes in and he's like, you know, hey, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm gonna do what I can. And I'm just like, hey, doc, am I gonna be paralyzed? He looks at me and he's like, can you move your legs? And I'm like, no. And he's like, you are paralyzed. And I can't tell you if it's gonna go away or if you're gonna be permanent, but you know, I'm gonna do what I can. So all that happens, you know, I go through imaging, they do all my imaging. I'm like literally in the CAT scan machine and the x-ray machine like for like an hour. They literally told me I could take a nap since I was like fully strapped in and everything. So I fell asleep kind of, sort of. And then, you know, they do the imaging. I'm laying in the room and the neurosurgeon comes in and he's like, hey, you know, here's your x-rays. Let me tell you what happened. So come to find out, I had an impact or compression where I basically blew out my C7, and you can see I have a scar right there. I have another one on my back, but basically like kind of like blew it up, fractured my C6 vertebrae, and I broke my T4, so I broke my back also. And he's like, yeah, well, we're gonna go in for the front and fuse the front for sure. They were gonna take out like pieces that was like the pieces that were there, and they were gonna put my bone in, some of my bone that was left, and then like a cadaver bone, he said, and then they're gonna put like a block. So they put like a block to fuse from the C6 to the T1. And then if he doesn't feel like it was stabilized enough, he was gonna go and do surgery on my back of my neck, which he had to. I'm fused from like C2 to T1. My whole cervical vertebrae is fused. Yeah, so I do the two surgeries, and then, you know, I still don't have any movement in my lower body. And, you know, I started to come to realize, like, you know, I may be paralyzed for the rest of my life. And I had to come to the reality that, like, everything I've been working for, how hard I've been working, like, both of me and Nicole and I just been working our butts off to, you know, try to get a successful career after I got out of the military, you know. And I had to come to the realization that it may change, you know. And it sucked. It put me in a little depression. So a few days after my two surgeries, you know, the nurses would come in and I have to like, I have no sensation on the left side of my body from the chest side down. So you could stab me, poke me, burn me, like I can't feel it. And so they would come in and assess and like poke me with a needle every hour or two to see if my body was changing. It hasn't happened since. It still hasn't happened. So while they're doing that, they'd tell me to try to like just flex my quads, flex my arms, squeeze my hands, and I got lucky and my right quad flexed. And you know, I was like, okay, you know, let's move, let's get going. And then you know, throughout that time frame, they're like, this may be all you get, and I just kept pushing it and working, and you know, I still have issues with my legs today. I have this thing called clonus where I have random spasms. I have foot drop where sometimes I can't keep it up and it drops. Sometimes that makes me drag my foot and trip. I have a little bit of a limp, you know, but I'm walking, so it's amazing. You know, and I have issues with my hands, like since my right side stayed paralyzed a lot longer. I have issues, like it doesn't want to open. But yeah, so back to the story of why I want to go to medical school and why this accident has solidified my reason even more. So the whole time I was in the hospital for almost about a month, you know, my trauma doctor, Dr. Campbell, who was also, like I said, a military doctor, would do his rounds, and he would come in and sit and talk with me. It wasn't just like checking on me, like, oh, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. No, he would sit there, pull the chair up, sit down, and sit there for 30 minutes to an hour talking to me about, like, how to get into medical school, what to do for the MCAT, letters of recs, if I needed anything, he was there giving me hope. And in the time frame of me like kind of flexing my leg and kind of getting movement, I didn't know if I was going to change or not, and he provided hope. And a lot of doctors, from what I hear and what I've kind of experienced, aren't like that. You hear that they're cold, they're unrelatable, and this guy was amazing. I was laying in that bed not knowing what my future was going to be like, and he changed it. He changed my outlook. Also, my family and everything else, but like, that is a quality that a doctor needs to have. And from being on the patient side and laying in that bed and feeling hopeless, and experiencing that accident and experiencing him is going to change the way I'm going to be as a doctor to my patients. I want to be that hope that, hey man, I'm going to give you hope. You're going to walk. Or talking to someone's family member, like, she or he may have cancer, but I'm going to do my best so that you can live a long life with this person. Whatever it is, athletes, you want to play for a long career, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do that for you. I have the sympathy, I have the compassion. Like, I thought, like, being in the military and having all these courses and having good grades and having all these experiences were the reason, like, well, that's going to make me a good candidate for medical school. It wasn't. And it's crazy because, like, I remember saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? But, like, the positive thing is, it now has given me a one up on other applicants that are applying to medical school that just have community service and just have good grades. Like, I'm not saying that's bad or anything, but, like, it's going to separate me from a lot of other applicants, which I think is going to help me get into medical school. Yeah, and I think that's about it. Like, I just want to be able to go to medical school and provide hope. And everyone's like, oh, you want to be a doctor to help people. Yeah, that's part of it. That is a big thing. But, like, how do you want to help people? Why do you want to help people? It's like, yeah, I just want to help people. I want to help people because I was helped. I was laying in that bed, not knowing what's going to happen to me, not knowing what's going to happen to me and my family's future. And he gave me it. He gave me the hope. And, you say the light of the tunnel is cliche and all that stuff, but that time I was in the hospital. I was in a dark place, and he did that. He provided light. Same with my neurosurgeon, Dr. Nguyen. Because of him, because of my 2 surgeries, I'm walking. Like, it is what it is, and I want to do that for people. I don't care if it takes another 10 years of school. It's what I'm gonna do. And jeez, I didn't want to get emotional, but that's why I want to go to medical school, and I think I'll be a great candidate. And yeah, see where my future takes me.